Well, hello. Every gal needs a cowboy hat.
Scanning the room, you look for a familiar face. Everyone is a stranger. Your heart's racing, you feel nauseous. New plan. You meet 4 new people. Okay, 3. 2? You can handle 2. And then you think, I hate this. This just feels so fake. And before you talk to even one new person, you're looking for the nearest exit.
Okay. Crazy. Yo, who invited this chick?
My heart races when I walk into a room full of strangers, too. Except it's not anxiety, it's excitement. I'm not thinking networking quota. I'm thinking, look at all these stories. And I get so pumped about talking to people that I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Well, hello, everyone. We are live and we are going global today. Happy St. Andrew's Day. So excited about our guest today. But first of all, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Gail Robertson. My business is GailNow. And my focus is helping manufacturers tell their story. And part of telling the story is using curiosity and also using a 3-step process. Sign up, suit up, and show up. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to show up. We're going to be talking to a great guest who is all the way over across the pond in Scotland. And that's why we had the song today, Scotland the Brave. This is part of my heritage. My father actually was from Motherwell, Scotland. I'm sure he's looking down right now and well, mostly happy with with what I'm doing and carrying on the Robertson name. Yes, Robertson is my birth name. It's something that I treasure. I treasure my Scottish roots. And back in 2019, I was asked to, well, she was late. It was on New Year's Eve on 2018. I was given a call and asked to deliver the immortal memory to Robbie Burns at a Robbie Burns Supper. And well, what did I do? I said, yes, of course, yes. And then what was I going to do next is I had to prepare a speech. So part of that preparation was, so first I signed up, I said yes, then I suited up, did my research, and I was introduced to Murray Pittock on Twitter. And well, the rest they say is history. We've been in touch over the last couple of years, and we're going to be getting into talking about the branding of the barn, talking about curiosity and how does this relate to manufacturers? Well, it's all about the power of telling your story, the power of networking, the power of connecting through social media, meeting people and keeping in touch. And then you never know where some of these relationships and journeys will take you. And so we're going to be hearing from, and I want to say too, one of the things that I've been starting to do a little more in the area of TikTok and using video, and we're now going to go over, and I have to say Murray is a great sport. Not only is he very highly regarded, he's a Scottish historian, he is at the University of Glasgow, has a whole list of accolades and 25 plus books to his name. But when I asked him, I said, you know, Robbie Burns wrote O Lang Syne. Would you sing that song for me to use on Twitter? He said yes. Let's go over to that. Because then I could just, so hopefully I sound less echoey because I now have my AirPods in. So,
Like to?
Okay.
You want me to go?
Okay. Oh, sure. Let me just see. Let me just set up. I'm going to set you up as speaker. I don't use Zoom as much. Where is it at? Zoom. Okay. So we're now, did you get a message that says we're recording?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Well, you know what? We are live, and my apologies. That was actually the, well, that was definitely the prep video, not the one that I had planned to show. So you know what? We'll get to that maybe later. Wrong video, but we have the right person ready. So let's bring Murray on stage. Here we go. Hi, Murray.
Oh, Gail, I haven't got my Tammy on. You've got your hat.
I have my hat, and
Absolutely. Happy St. Andrew's Day to you.
happy St. Andrew's Day. And I know, well, you know what, I'm going to tell everybody, since we didn't have, that was my prep video and not the video clip. So, you know, sometimes when you go live, all sorts of great things happen. And I won't even ask you to sing All Lang Syne right now, because you know what, if people want to hear it, they can hear it on Twitter and on TikTok.
Yeah, they can. Absolutely. Get on those platforms or don't, as the case may be, actually.
Well, I have to say, I was so impressed with you singing along and saying yes to that, because a lot of times people, you know, are reluctant to, as I say, show up. And my last guest, we talked about being the red M&M in the bowl of green. And I will say that I think you would fit that bill, that, you know, standing out there and also speaking up for the Robbie Burns as well. So let's start into a little bit about little scene setter of who you are, and maybe give a little bit of an overview about Robbie Burns and how you got so involved with studying Robbie Burns.
Well, thanks, Gail. I mean, who I am is as you said, a Scottish historian, and I grew up in Aberdeen, in the northeast of Scotland, and I've travelled very widely since then. I was at university in Glasgow and Oxford, and in terms of the United States, I've been to around about 22 states from the early mid-80s onwards, and some of them many times. In Canada, I have to say, although I've been to Vancouver many times, it's the only place I've ever been, which is just one of those things. Now, Burns is very much part of people's lives. I think I went to my first Burns Supper at 15, and it was a school Burns Supper, but it wasn't a church Burns Supper, so we did manage to smuggle some alcohol in. It's not really possible to have teetotal Burns Suppers. People try. But Burns, the one thing you could be absolutely certain is that Burns would never have attended one. Nor, I have to say, would he probably have attended a single-sex Burns Supper, though there used to be quite a few of those too. However, so I went to Burns Suppers when I was a youngster, and I started doing a lot of serious work on Burns in my scholarly career, particularly Burns as a global figure. The thing about the Burns Supper, to take that example, and we've just published, people can see on our website, a map of global Burns Suppers at the beginning of this year at the Centre for Robert Burns Studies at Glasgow. But Burns, there are 9.5 million people at Burns Suppers every year, and they're regularly held in well over 100, between 100 and 150 countries. And some of them are pretty major events. And there's also a very strong charitable dimension to them. That even, say, the one in Accra, Ghana, a few years ago, they raised $25,000 for charities in Ghana and West Africa. And that's a very much part of the humanitarian language of Burns. But I think we got in touch because, particularly about branding, and I'm very keen on branding. I was talking, giving evidence to Scottish Parliamentary Committee last week on how we could adjust the national brand, how we might need to adjust the national brand in the next few years. So I know that's your passion too. And so I carried out this report, Burns and the Scottish Economy, for, it's quite a meaty beast, for the Scottish government about, 2 years ago. And one of the things is that it estimated that Burns is worth, and I'm going to talk in US dollars, Burns is worth annually around about 280 million US dollars to the Scottish economy, and has got furthermore an embedded brand value, which is a concept we developed for the report. Not so much about what he's worth on a day-to-day basis, but reasons that people come to Scotland which are not primarily Burnsian, but which are influenced by Burns's role within the Scottish brand, so embedded brand value as opposed to actual content brand value. So, and that was worth a further $200 million. But one of the pieces of advice, there's quite a lot of recommendations in the report that's been worked on a lot in regional development plans and elsewhere. But one of the key elements in the report is that the most successful country in the world at doing this is Mozart. It's Mozart in Austria. Austria in 2006, Austria's annual value of Mozart was $6 billion US dollars. And given that the country is only 9 million people, that is a significant chunk. And that's the significant chunk of the Austrian economy. And the thing, if you go to Austria, particularly in Salzburg, though Mozart also stayed in Vienna, but his birthplace is Salzburg, the place is absolutely full of unapologetic Mozart chocolates, Mozart cakes, the Mozart balls, the Mozart chocolates, Mozart branding everywhere. Mozart stayed here. Visit Mozart. Have associated festivals linked to classical music, traditional music. Look at historic opera scenes linked to Mozart's operas, and on it goes. And basically, Salzburg is completely rolling in money, not just because it's got all of that, but it's also got the Sound of Music, which adds a pretty large chunk as well on top. But nothing like Mozart's 6 billion. And that was, I'm talking 15 years ago. I mean, it is now most definitely significantly more. And that's a huge amount of money. In the US, Liberace's house and of course Elvis's house in Memphis, they have quite a significant chunk as well. But basically, we underutilize our cultural assets is the message I want to get across. We don't think in terms of brand. We don't think in terms of product development. And we don't think in terms of how we can analyze and build that brand either.
And that is, because of the work I'm doing in manufacturing, a lot of people may go, why am I interviewing a scholar from Robbie Burns? Well, when I was doing this speech, as you know, I realized the connection between branding and how people are drawn to a company, a country, an organization. And then it's about how you can build on that. And what I was fascinated by was the history of Robbie Burns and some of the things that, even I wasn't aware of. And there's a lot of people that may not know a lot about Robbie Burns unless you grew up in a Scottish home, which, sidebar, I did grow up in a home where the Scottish dinner we went to was at the Presbyterian church. So it was a dry Burns supper. And so to that, my father did not attend. My English mom came with me to that. And we had,
exactly. I'm with your dad from Motherwell there. Absolutely. He's so right.
Yes, my father definitely would not attend. If there was not whiskey in the house, he was not attending. And I remember one year, I think they had spiked the trifle. That was the big excitement of the year when there was alcohol in the trifle. Everyone was talking about it. And but what's key is that the stories of Robbie Burns, and maybe a lot of people don't know, and the reason I asked you to sing Old Lang Syne is that he wrote that song that everyone across the world, I don't think there is anyone who has probably not heard that song, sang that song, and is aware of it.
So you know that song is played at Taiwanese funerals, and it played at closing time in Japanese supermarkets.
Really?
It absolutely is. So Auld Lang Syne is used in commercial context to say last orders in bars in East Asia. Throughout the world, it signifies a whole load of things, as well as the sentiment of its origin. And when you've got something that you can actually sell globally, particularly a historic brand, that's really important. Just, you mentioned your father and whiskey, just for a moment. This is the Burns brand from the Arran Distillery. And what I want to say about that is that 97.5% of it is exported.
Wow. Well, I wonder who's the biggest drinkers of his whiskey. That's what I want. Is it U.S.? I wonder who drinks it the most.
It's actually the EU. France and Germany are some of the, so one of my favorite brand stories is despite the association of brandy with France, France drinks less brandy in a year than they drink Scotch whiskey in a month.
France drinks, can you repeat that again?
They drink less brandy in a year than they drink whiskey in a month, Scotch whiskey in a month.
Hello. Oh, my curious brain. Now, everybody, this is like
absolutely
fascinating because we think we assume things and we should never assume, but there's so many things. Oh, there's so much to learn about what we like. I mean, most of the whiskey is being exported. That's fascinating. So, because everybody thinks, because I don't think the Scots really, I mean, everybody associates Scots drinking, but I actually think there's other cultures that probably drink more than the Scots. But my father probably made up for us.
Well, I can tell you one that does, because once I did a Burns supper in Helsinki, and it was for the Nordic banks, and they had an all-night free malt bar, and you try getting fins out of an all-night free malt bar. I just went home. I couldn't take any more.
Yes, it's well, we might have a few. I know there's a few people in my circle that are whiskey drinkers, and I also just learned today, I was today years old, as they say, then I learned that whiskey, WHISKEY, is the Irish spelling, and no E is the Scottish spelling. So did not know that. So that is, and we all know the Scots, the Irish. We will not go down that road, but that is a whole other topic for, topic of discussion. But so in terms of this report that you did, and you appeared, I know, before the Parliament. So can you talk a little bit about that? And wait, just before we do that, I do want to say thank you. We actually have some my manufacturing people are in the comments. We have John and we have David Chrysler, John Buglino. So thank you both and whoever else is here today. Thank you for showing up and being part of this, because there are some key messages that people in marketing and sales can really take and learn from how Robbie Burns and how Scotland, and certainly we heard about Austria and Mozart and also Shakespeare, how all of that is all about branding and taking a brand and then growing that brand by stories.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about that, and it overlaps from not just Burns, but other things too, is that one of the things I see, working in tourism branding and attractions, is one of the real failings, and it's quite common worldwide, there's some places that got it right, is that a lot of people want to eat out when they go on holiday. Yeah, of course they do. So a lot of places have no story with their food. A lot of places are ever reliant on catering packs, but a lot of places have got local specialisms. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience of visiting somewhere and wanted to eat the local specialism and having nowhere you could actually find or provide it, or virtually nowhere. And it should be absolutely falling off the trees, because that provenance, local food, is not only food that people trust, but it's food with a story. And it also, in these kind of climate conscious days, is a food with a short supply chain and therefore usually a low carbon footprint. So there are all sorts of things about stories, as you rightly say, which if we looked at them consistently, would completely transform our experience of what we provide in local economies that have got a lot of visitors, and would also transform the experience of the visitors who want, because people are spending money on experiences now so much more than on things. And that's why there are, 3 or 4 times as many museum visits as there were 25 years ago. People want something to remember. They don't want something to clutter up their increasingly small and overpriced houses.
Yeah, you know what? I am with you on that. People are wanting stories, and the reason I wanted you to come on, because you have just said everything that a lot of people in manufacturing need to hear, because they have all these stories about their brand, about their company, about their product, and they're not sharing them. One story that I have about, and this was when I was running a bed and breakfast in a previous life. That was a couple of businesses back. I ran a bed and breakfast. And my mom used to make these biscuits, and it's also would be a Scottish tradition as well, because, they would use the sour milk and they would make these biscuits. So my mom had made these when I was growing up. So when I had the bed and breakfast, I decided to start making these, because people started around the kitchen around the breakfast table would talk about memories of growing up, memories of biscuits, and they would start telling these stories about food, about when they were growing up. So as time went on, they became more and more, and people would then come back to the bed and breakfast and ask about the biscuits. So then what I did was I actually put that as part of my brand on my business, and said it was our bed and breakfast, home of Gail's famous homemade biscuits. And before long, people were referencing it, including one young man called up. He was bringing his fiance there for a visit, and he said, "Are you Gail?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he said, "I read all about you and your famous biscuits." And I was like, "Oh, where did you read this?" It turns out it was in a local tourism booklet. I had written the story. Because I'm a recovering journalist. So as a journalist, I wrote it in a way that was about the story. And he, as a consumer, didn't know that it was written by me. He didn't know the difference between an advertorial and a story. So yes, this is why stories are powerful, because people can identify with them. Everybody could understand the bit. I could have talked about my business and the bed and breakfast, but what they understood was it was an emotional feeling. It was an emotional connection. And that's what, in terms of what Robbie Burns did back in the 1700s. So can you maybe, is there a story about Robbie Burns that really brings home the idea of how he is such a perfect brand identity for Scotland? Is there one story about him that stands out, or that you have that says, now this is the brand Robbie Burns?
Well, it's what he set out to be. So I think the one I always go back to is that Burns was not marvelously, but reasonably well educated. People won't probably know this, but when in the last year of his life, Burns had a larger annual income than Jane Austen typically had. But whenever he went, of course, he's identified as a ploughman poet. Whenever he went anywhere in Scotland, whether it was Edinburgh or anywhere else, at any time of the day or night, he would wear farmer's boots, because he wanted to be identified as a son of the soil and therefore the voice of the people. So he was actually responsible for a large portion of his own brand. And the other thing I want to reference for people reading Burns is you often leave Burns with an enormously powerful feeling. It's a great feeling of, of love, of aroused emotion, of sentiment towards humanity, of radical democratic feeling. And then you actually, if you do that and you look back at what you've just read, you actually find it quite hard to know what he's really saying. He's getting you going, but he hasn't actually taken you anywhere. And it's that caliber that he's got, the universal language of emotion that gets you going, that is so important for his appeal worldwide.
He did understand that. And on that note, I'm going to we're going to play a clip from my speech in 2019, because I reference this, and then we'll come back and talk about someone that was maybe a bit of a surprise, of a more current day person that held him in quite high regard. So let's hear that clip of where I referenced Maya Angelou.
When it comes to a great brand, a brand that can stand the test of time as Burns did, you need to have impact. You need to connect at a level that is more than just your words or your product or your service. And this is where Burns excelled. Maya Angelou once said, in a quote. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Burns was the supreme poet of feeling. When we look at some of his work, as I mentioned, Auld Lang Syne, whenever I hear Auld Lang Syne, for some reason that touches someplace deep inside of me, that it brings tears sometimes to my eyes. And it was because Burns often didn't write things that would offend. Often he wrote things that connected to things we could understand. Things like remembering times gone by, friends from our past.
So, Maya Angelou and Robbie Burns. That was fascinating when I did research into that connection, and that Maya Angelou held him in such high regard.
That's right. On the dirt tracks of Arkansas, I first met Robert Burns, she says. So, I mean, it's the thing is, he has been transformational and remains transformational on so many lives. In the 19th century, Frederick Douglass chose a man's a man for all that, for the abolitionist movement. And he's remained, I think the predominant, and Maya Angelou belongs to this tradition, the predominant issue for Burns in America is that Burns is kind of the European who is really an American. That is, they're not all bad in Europe. They're all backward and in love with tradition and tyrant kings. There are people like Burns, and that's what Burns has meant to generations of North Americans, from Lincoln to Maya Angelou, in their different ways.
Yes, there have certainly been some fans, and on this day of St. Andrews, which is why I actually wanted to have you on, because this day is also talking about it's a celebration of kindness and helping others, and I think the one thing in researching again for the speech about the branding of Robbie Burns was that he was such a multi-layered person, and he wasn't perfect. And that was another thing I appreciated too. He wasn't perfect, but at the same time,
isn't that reassuring? Isn't that reassuring?
few of us are, and but he certainly did transform the world. Another classic song that people may have, "My Love Is Like a Red, Red Rose," which is, people may not know, that also came from Robbie Burns.
Indeed, absolutely.
Yeah. And that one, actually, my brother at his last marriage was, that was the song that was played for his wife, and it was very touching. My brother has since passed on, but that was a memory that I had shared with my sister-in-law, that she shared with me, that they played that at the wedding, because my brother was not the most romantic kind of type, but that was a song that he chose for their wedding, which is very touching, because again, when you're right, a lot of the words were very basic. Auld Lang Syne, most people don't even know, but it makes you feel something, even if you don't know what the words are saying.
Something. It makes you feel good. Yes.
Yes. Now, there are so many more stories, but we do have to hear before we talk Robbie Burns. But now this is just because this is the cool stuff that you actually debated with Boris Johnson. So we have to, as a journalist, I have to ask this question. So we have to hear a Boris Johnson story, the inside scoop on Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister. So, and with his accent, please, because you do that. We got to hear that.
Okay. So I'll in reverse order, I'll tell the stories that we discussed yesterday. So one of Boris is one of the most skillful politicians as a student I ever knew. I knew two who are very extremely good, and Boris is one of the other. Also went on to lead a major political party. But but this was at Oxford, so we were at the same college. One of the rules for being elected in the Oxford Union is that you can't canvass. You can't have an electoral campaign. You can't canvass. There's nothing, because originally it was a gentleman's club rule. So if you're a gentleman, everyone should know who you are. We don't need to have all of this noxious electoral stuff. So Boris, of course, wasn't going to take this lying down. So what he did was to appoint a man who subsequently became quite a notable Republican pollster in the US, Frank Luntz, who was at that time a student at another college, to do college-specific polling. So there was no canvassing and no campaigning. There was college-specific polling. And as a result, Boris decided to go for dinner or to meet people more in the colleges where he was lowly rated. And of course, the colleges where he was highly rated, he gave them proportionally less attention. So all of this was accomplished as a great evasion of the rule, but one that was entirely within the rules, because no one had thought it was possible until he did it. And he was just 20 when he did that. So that's pretty smart, I think.
That's strategic.
Yeah, that absolutely is strategic. So the more personal one I'll tell, and there are more, but I think they need rationing, is that we did debate together, and we chatted quite a bit about debating. And once we were not in the same debate, but he was president of the union and I was speaking, and he came up to me afterwards and he said to me, "Murray, we'd won the debate. That was an absolutely splendid speech, Murray. Absolutely splendid. I think you did really, really well. Prevail, all the rest of it. Excellent, excellent. There's just one thing. You sound as if you meant it." That actually typifies something about Boris to this day.
Wow.
It's all a game. It's all a game.
Yes, and unfortunately, a lot of times in politics, that is, yes, there's such an array of politicians and politics, and I know we won't touch that too much, but that could be definitely a story. Maybe one day I'll have a live on that, get into something more controversial as well. But Murray, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I want to thank you again for the help you did giving me with my 2019 immortal memory, because that was something that was really interesting for me to connect the dots of Robbie Burns and my father and my son, who is actually also will carry on the Robertson name. Yes, my last name, and continuing on to celebrate our Scots roots, and always good to learn more. Okay. Always good to learn more about that history. And as you know, I am planning to make it over to Scotland one day and maybe deliver my speech somewhere there and meet up with the people at the museum and at the university, get a tour, maybe come speak to a class. I don't know.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much. Is there anything else before we wrap up? Anything else you wanted to add about the branding of the barn? Anything that we have missed? I'm just trying to think. I know there was probably a couple more questions I was going to ask about curiosity. Obviously, you celebrate that in terms of how you've used curiosity. Maybe you could talk about Twitter, because we didn't talk about social media, and I would like to, because that's how we met. For those of you who aren't aware, I met Murray because I saw something posted on Twitter and I connected him. This was pre-pandemic, so we actually did an interview on Skype. Remember that? So how do you find Twitter? How is that working for you?
Oh, well, I've been on Twitter for about 7 years, and I think that was mainly because it's I'm very involved in politics and policy making, and it's a very political policy making kind of site. It is probably the most political of all the platforms, I would say. Mm-hmm. I mean, that has its ups and downsides, because it's also a great home for conspiracy theorists and general bampots, as we would say in Scotland. But nonetheless, there is a good deal of material and high quality breaking news and links to reports, particularly social and policy reports, are very frequent on Twitter, more frequent than they often are on other platforms. A lot of combo as you in these areas use Twitter and they use Facebook as a backup, but they nearly always find the Facebook traffic is much less because Facebook operates in a different mode. I mean, I don't know what it's like in North America, but in the UK, the average viewer of BBC News is 61. The average Facebook user is 42. The average Twitter user is 33. And I think sometimes the average Instagram user is 17, but probably it's a bit older than that. Anyway, it is a bit older than that. I know the number, yeah. but so it's horses for courses, really, as always in social media terms. I think people sometimes I'm sure not people involved in the kind of businesses you consult with, but people sometimes spread the same story or spread themselves in the same way over every platform they inhabit. And that's only occasionally justified. You should really think what you want out of each platform. But you should also keep people, you should also keep, know who your audience is and reach out to them, because it's very tempting just to sound off. And frankly, anyone can sound off, and almost everybody does.
You know, that is so true. And you summed up Twitter very well, because there was a discussion in a manufacturing group I was in, and that was the thing they said, is that, you know, all platforms serve a purpose. And I don't really see that there's any good or bad ones. Well, maybe there's one that's not so good, but it's really how you use them. For example, I have used TikTok, or I am using TikTok right now, but it has a very specific, I'm using it in a certain way that's, you know, because I do speaking, and it does help me with utilizing some of the tools on TikTok. So, but I don't always recommend that for everyone. And I said, it's not, you know, you have to really look at, you know, what area you're in. And for sure, Twitter, it's how we connected. And I think meeting people like yourself, that's why I love Twitter, because I've connected up with amazing people. And it's really good connecting over to LinkedIn as well. So where we are today, I find a lot of people that I've met on Twitter, I can sometimes, you know, we connect over on LinkedIn and have discussions there as well. So thank you for that. And can you maybe talk about how you exercise your curious brain? What is it that you do for your curious brain workout? What do you do to expand that brain?
I spend my life in curiosity. So my pet view about curiosity is this. Is that people are more interested in expertise than they are in curiosity. And expertise has got, I'm all in favor of it, believe you me, but it's got limited returns if it's not laterally expanded. So an awful lot of people are making decisions which are extremely well informed, but they're based on one aspect of the situation. And what I would say is curiosity is expanding your bandwidth. Curiosity is expanding the number of things you relate to each other in terms of the decisions that you make and in terms of the policies that are adopted. And in say to without mentioning politics, to go back to the political process, in the North America and the UK, there is too much influence of pressure groups on policymakers. If you look at the proportions of non-aligned expert advice, is much lower than it is, for example, in France or Germany or Japan. It's much less technocratic. There's a lot of pressure groups, and pressure groups force decision making into silos. That's what they're for. So curiosity is always about expanding, or for me, always about expanding, not getting the last 0.4% in one particular area when you might be missing something relevant to 20% of that area by knowing anything about 2 or 3 others.
That is so true. And my guess is being in debating also helped with that, because I was debating in high school, and I said, when you have to go to an event, you know, I remember going to one where we had to repair both sides. And then when you showed up, they told you what side you were going to be debating. And it was like, so you had to be ready to go with whichever one. So I was thinking about that recently when I was doing some work around the curious brain. And I realized that was such an instrumental part of developing my views, which is, to quote Walt Whitman too, be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
And absolutely. When you are curious, it's a lot harder to start judging other people, other issues. And that's why I like Twitter, because there is some different views on there too. And I like to be in the know of different perspectives. And that quote actually is also on the show Ted Lasso, which many people hear me talk about, which is an amazing show. I love it. It says so much about positivity and kindness. And they also talk about mental health. And yeah, it's amazing. And we do have that video queued up. So we are going to, because I think we need to hear your Scottish brogue singing Old Lang Syne, Murray. And we also want to give, I read up a little bit about your daughter, let's give a shout out to your daughter, because can you explain what she does? Because that's pretty fascinating. You have a all-star family, I think.
Oh, you're too kind, Gail. No, I got two daughters, and the younger, I suggest the younger one might. They both sing actually, but the younger one might want to sing instead of me for Auld Lang Syne, because she sings at the Vienna State Opera, and they're under slight lockdown at present, but she's doing Don Giovanni live stream next week. So
wow, well, you have to tag or something on that on Twitter. And then your other daughter, what area is she in?
She's a psychiatrist.
Oh, see, you do have a rock star family. That is all very diverse. I bet you there's some interesting dinner time conversations. I want to thank too, just before we sign off, I want to thank people. Scott D. MacArthur was on here. Now, Scott had a live show this morning, and it was interesting because we have, and I'm going to pronounce his name. I think it's Gabe or Gabe. I don't want to pronounce your name wrong, Gabe, but he does a live stream list of all the various live stream shows. And this morning, first thing while I was on the treadmill, I thought, I wonder which is the first show up today. So I listened to Scott MacArthur's show. It was an amazing show talking about peace. And I will tag you on that, Murray, because it was a fascinating interview. And he is also from, I think, Carluke, which is just down the road. Yeah, down the road from Motherwell. And so thanks to this wonderful live stream community, there's a lot of live shows that are interviewing fascinating people, obviously like yourself, Murray. There's other shows where people are now having an opportunity to really meet people globally, hear these stories, learn more. And for people with a curious brain, you want to check out some of these live shows and get in. Yeah, he said, love the hat. Is there a story behind the hat, or did I miss it? Late meeting. Okay, the hat is part of branding today. We were talking about branding of Robbie Burns. This is a tam, a Scottish hat that, or maybe I'm going to ask, because I'm not sure exactly. So Murray, what is the significance of me wearing this?
It's well, you'll have to tell me that yourself. But it's a tammy. It's a tam o'shanter. This truth found honest tam o'shanter when he Freya enacted canter all there, and there are tune surpasses for honest men and bonny lasses. So tam o'shanter is usually depicted wearing what has become known as the tam o'shanter bonnet, the old Scottish bonnet. Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about getting about Robbie Burns wearing the boots. Well, for me, I love dressing up. So when I go to an event, when I'm working at a convention, when I'm doing a show, I was going to take it off. I thought, nope, this hat is part of my brand today, of my Scots root. I do have actually I have my full, my little kilt thing on today as well. So I decided to come out in full regalia. So thank you to everybody, and anybody that hasn't put your link or dropped your hello, please do so in the comments. Lots of opportunity to do some networking, connecting. And Scott, I'm going to connect you with Murray, because actually Scott thinks that maybe he was did some work with you way back at a university when you were younger somewhere. So I don't know. There's a note somewhere he wrote to me, because me, I was talking to him. I said, he says, yeah, I think we went to, and I was going to try to look it up now, but I don't know. let me see if I can find what he said, because now that we have him on, if he's still on here. He said, he was the one that told me about the Scottish Jam. It says, it seems meaning you and him, worked at Edinburgh Uni at the same time back in the day when he was a research scientist.
Yeah, that's probably right. Then that's the 1990s. Yeah.
There you go. So Scott, Murray, Scott. There we go. We'll connect you up, and he may want you to have you on one of his shows one time, because he talks about artifacts and the importance of that. So, anyways, we're gonna go. We're gonna go out to the. We're gonna send you back to the green room, Murray. Enjoy the drinks and snacks in the green room for you.
Oh, I really do. It's the budget blows my mind. Absolutely.
I like to take care of my guests.
I want sure that there's some haggis bonbons. I'm looking forward to having those tomorrow night at the Scotland House St Andrews night in London. But I like because do you know that Burns actually is the only person who keeps the Scottish haggis industry going? Both of the major manufacturers do so much of their business around Burns night that basically we wouldn't have any haggis if it wasn't for Burns. Isn't that pathetic?
I love haggis. I love haggis. I stand firmly. It is so good. And people all go, I say, especially if you like liver. I mean, I like liver, so that helps too. But I love haggis. The one at the back in 2019, they ordered it they had to order it ahead of time. It's quite a procedure to order haggis. You can't just go out and get it any old time.
No, particularly not in the US, but that's another story.
That's another story. Okay, we're going to send you back to the game. We're going to play. We're going to, while you're going back there, we're going to hear you. And I'm doing some lip syncing on this. So hopefully this is the correct video this time. We'll give it a shot. Here we go.
We'll take a cup of kindness yet for the days of Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my Joe, for Auld Lang Syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for the days of Auld Lang Syne.
Well, that was quite an interview with Murray Pittock. Murray Pittock is a Scottish historian. I first met him a couple of years ago working on preparing for a speech on the branding of the bard at a Scottish dinner here in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. The value of the Burns brand in the Scottish economy is phenomenal. I believe it's like 200 million pounds per year. So definitely a big business. Murray talked about the other brands like Shakespeare, Mozart, and the value of branding, the value of telling your story, and the value of curiosity as well. And for those of you that may be coming in late, you might want to go back and hear how Murray talks about why we need to give our curious brains a workout. He talked about what he does, which is about, the breadth of learning and expanding and hearing different perspectives, being curious, not judgmental, which is so valuable. And we need more of that in our world today. So thank you for tuning in today. It went a little longer, but it was so fascinating to hear the story of, and today's St. Andrew's Day in Scotland. Just wanted to let everyone know as well that I am booking into 2022 for public talks, talking about the curious brain, talking about signing up, suiting up, and showing up, especially in the manufacturing sector. I also do panel discussions and do a lot of virtual panels and virtual talks where we can bring a little bit of fun, a little bit of excitement, maybe some singing, dancing, and some music, and incorporating video more into what we're doing when we want to tell our brand story. We want to share what we are building upon, whether it's in our business, whether it's our organizations, or even personally. The networking that can go on when you are understanding how to use curiosity and how to show up in the world, well, it really is quite magical, and we can accomplish so much. So what are you doing, and what can you do to give your curious brain a workout? And on that note, I want to say, please join me on, you can find me at GailNow on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, GailNow1. Also on LinkedIn, right here on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and now on TikTok. So that's where I have some fun. So join me there, say hello, and have a great day. St. Andrew's Day. Remember, St. Andrew's Day is all about showing some humanity and showing some kindness, and we need a lot more of that in our world. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And on that, I think we might be going back to my intro video again and bring a little bit of joy and levity into our world. Have a great day.
Well, hello. Every gal needs a cowboy hat. Scanning the room, you look for a familiar face. Everyone is a stranger. Your heart's racing, you feel nauseous. New plan. You'll meet 4 new people. Okay, 3. 2. You can handle 2. And then you think, I hate this. This just feels so fake. And before you talk to even one new person, you're looking for the nearest exit.
Okay. Crazy. Yo, who invited this chick?
My heart races when I walk into a room full of strangers too. Except it's not anxiety, it's excitement. I'm not thinking networking quota. I'm thinking, look at all these stories. And I get so pumped about talking to people that I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!